That's right. I went with an oval chainring. Why? I'm not really sure, but I figured if it's good enough for Phil Metz, it's good enough for me. So I figured I'd try it out. And you know, what could go wrong? I went into this with a real open mind, I think, because I didn't have any expectation whatsoever. Um, in fact, the only expectation I had was something that Phil said in a live stream, saying that if you stand up while pedaling with an oval chainring, it feels a little weird. It feels like it's too light, like you're in too light of a gear, and he's pretty much spot on with that. But outside of that expectation, I had pretty much zero expectations. I have to say though, after a month or so of riding on this thing, I have to say that if there's a bandwagon of sorts for oval chain rings, I am firmly on it, because there were some unexpected benefits that I think I picked up. And I say I think because I don't think it's in my head, but it's one of those things like, is it in my head, or is this actually real, or am I just progressing? But I think there were pretty stark differences that happened, or 1 week that weren't happening the prior week. So I'm pretty sure the benefits that I'm seeing are from the chainring itself. So, but after I was riding around for a while, I noticed a couple of things that were different. I actually noticed one thing that has to do with, you know, your muscle memory when you go to downshift or upshift on your bike and you're pedaling, and you know your cadence and whatnot. It's all that muscle memory that goes into kind of guessing what gear you're in without really looking down. Everything in my muscle memory and my perception of being on the bike and riding on some of these steeper short climbs that we have here in Florida, they're all technical, rooty, rocky, that kind of thing, but they're pretty steep. Everything told me that I was in my top gear. So after riding around, I was still getting stuck on some of these steep, punchy climbs that we have, these technical climbs. I was still getting stuck at like 3/4 of the way up, or 9/10 of the way up, like right at the top. I just ran out of steam. And that was happening with the oval chainring. And so one of those times I hopped off the bike and I walked up that last 4 feet or so, and I looked down and I realized, you know, I had a whole gear left. And when you have a whole gear left on these modern day cassettes, that's a pretty big difference. So I made a conscious effort on all the next climbs to make sure that I give it a couple extra clicks to make sure that I'm all the way up, because from everything I felt like I was in my top gear, but apparently I wasn't. So once I started doing that, once I started getting that extra click to make sure that I was in my top gear going up these steep, punchy climbs, that's where things got interesting, because all of a sudden on some of these climbs that I had never made it up, I was making it up fairly easily. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm just, you know, extra warmed up, or maybe, you know, I'm progressing, or maybe I'm stronger that day, or whatever. But then the next week I go ride at a different place, and there are these short, punchy, steep climbs that I would get hung up on at this place. But with this oval chainring, I didn't. I kind of just zoomed right up those little climbs. And in some instances, some of the ones that I used to get stuck on a lot, they just felt flat out easier. I mean, like a lot easier. Like it was nothing. So that's probably why I was a little confused whether it was me getting stronger or progressing or learning better technique, or if it was just the chainring. But I think because it happened 1 week and not the prior week, I'm pretty sure it's the chainring. I kind of don't want to believe myself that it's like works and it's some kind of physics sorcery going on making us better mountain bikers because an oblong shaped chainring, but that seems to be the case. And some details about this is an absolute black chainring, even though it's clearly gold and not black at all. It's from Absolute Black. It's a 30 tooth chainring, because that's what came stock on this. And Absolute Black recommends that you go with the same number of teeth that your round chainring has. So I did, and if you see here, you can see that it's pretty darn close right there. In fact, with it in its current state, it actually rubs on that guard a little bit. But once you sit down and compress the suspension, it gets like 1/4 of an inch away. I mean, I don't remember exactly how much it was. I think it's like $54. I'll put a link to it in the description below. But I think for 54 bucks, it was a worthwhile experiment for me. I don't know if it is for other people, but it's not like you can't go back to your other chainring. In fact, it's not all that bad of an idea, especially on bikes like this that don't really have a good way to mount any kind of bash guard. Might not be a bad idea to have an extra chainring laying around. So that I have. I don't know if I'm going to carry it with me in my pack, my hydration pack, pop a hole in it or whatever, but at least I have one and it won't hold me up from riding the next day. So there you have it. Oval chainrings. Mr. Tonka approved, if that matters to you at all. As always, thanks for watching. So close, dude. So close. All right, there. Oh, good boy. Good boy.